do is pick a language. So there are several to choose from. We can use JavaScript on the back end. So if you already know that from the front end, that would be an easy transition. You can use the Node.js or Dino libraries. Right, moving on. Next, we have databases. And just about every site has some data that it needs to keep. Examples of data would be products for sale or blog post content. And there are two main categories that databases fall into: relational and non-relational, I guess, but you can also call them NoSQL/cloud. Let's look at the relational databases first. So relational databases are a lot like spreadsheets with tables. These tables can link to each other using unique identifiers. And relational databases are more strict and require you to define each table's column and type ahead of time. Examples of these are PostgreSQL, MySQL, Azure Cloud SQL, and Microsoft SQL. There are some great resources on some of these from FreeCodeCamp and Traversing Media. NoSQL and cloud databases are not as strict as relational databases. You can define their data and types on the fly. It's important, though, to understand these differences and pick the correct type of database that fits the needs of your application. While NoSQL and cloud databases may be easier to get up and running at first, you may run into issues down the road as your database grows. Some examples of these are MongoDB, Airtable, AWS, FaunaDB, and Firebase. There are some great resources on these from Traversing Media, Fireship, and myself. And again, all of the links to these resources will be in the PDF in the description below. All right, moving down the line, next up we have APIs. So now that you have the databases down, you need to be able to access the data from the front end through APIs. API is an application programming interface. It's a way for the front end to consume the data from the back end. You can check out this fun tutorial on how to build your own API from Anya Kubo. And next up, we have authentication. If your site needs to keep track
हॅलो हा हा परत बोल ना. हीच लिंक आहे का आपली ह्याची इव्हेंटची? हा. हा. ओके, तर मी कुठे बोलू? मी इथे बोलू? ओके, मी नाही स्ट्रीम ओपन करत. मी इथे फक्त माईक ऑन ठेवतो आणि मी इथे बोलतो बस. ओके ओके ओके. हा. हम्म. ओके ओके. ओके. आता किती लोक जॉईन झाले? क्लब मधून कोण जॉईन झाले मीटिंग? ओके. ओके, चालेल. हा, माईक म्यूट करतो.
And we are live.
Hello everyone, welcome to today's session. We'll be starting soon. We'll wait for more 2 or 3 minutes.
And we are live.
Hello everyone, greetings from Gigs for Gig VIIT. Today we are going to have a session on web development, which will be presented to you by our friend Varad. So, what is exactly web development? So, web development refers to the building, creating, and maintaining of website. It includes aspects such as web design, web publishing, web programming, and database management, and many other things. It is the creation of an application that works over the internet, that is the websites. So, this is a very short introduction about what is basically web development. So, is this short information and short knowledge about it enough for us? No. So, to elaborate on this, Varad will be taking over this session. Varad, I request to you that you start the session.
Thanks a lot, Prasad. Thank you very much. So, greetings from my side, guys. What a pleasant evening it is, and how I really I would really appreciate you guys to be more. What we can say is interactive in this session, so we guys can have a really cool chat. So yes, so I'm going to be hosting this session for you, and I think we should begin. So a bit intro from my side. I think, oh yeah, shit. Okay, so a bit intro about me. So I am in the same college as you guys are. I am in VIIT, and I am from IT department. And currently I am working as an intern with Angel AI Private Limited, where I am a React developer. My day-to-day responsibilities include working with APIs, testing them, implementing the UI as per code design, using optimal code practices. Some of my skills are web development, which includes React JS, Node, Express, CSS, and HTML5. I've also done few projects in Python, and I am looking forward to improve my skills in DS Algo. And there is some basic contact information and my email ID. So this session exactly, for whom is this session for? So this session is a roadmap for web development. Like if you have learned web development, or if you're starting to learn or if you're looking to learn web development in 2021, 2022, so this session is just for you guys. I'm going to tell you what resources you are going to need, what are stuff to look for, and everything that you are going to require, like what all possibilities are out there for web development in 2021 and 2022. So I think it's time we should begin. um, so yeah, I think it's time to begin the session. So can someone please type in chat box like I'm visible or not? Okay, so I think we should. So how is web development works? So first, if you are looking to enter the web development world, you should need to know how the internet works. How the internet works. We are first going to take a look at how the internet works. So internet. So you should, if you're looking to learn web development, then you need to know about hosting, what is DNS, how are what are HTTP requests, browsers, and domain names. So these are things you just need to know. You don't have to look in like किसने internet बनाया, ये browser किसका है. There is nothing to like just go deeper into it. You just need to know how it works. We don't have to go deeper than that. If you know enough, if you know all this stuff, then you are just fine. So after you know all these stuff, then we move to the basic tools which you are going to require in your journey as a web developer. So gone are the days where we used integrated development environments, IDEs, those heavy chunks of softwares that we used to install in our computers. Now we use the text editors which you after you implement some extension on it, they are exceptionally well tools. And so here are a few tools for here are a few text editors: VS Code, Sublime Text, Atom, and Vim. All of them are really great, but my favorite is VS Code, and most of you probably are using VS Code or Sublime Text or Atom. Vim is not that popular, but these three are really great tools. These three are like I really like all of them, but I personally use VS Code. So browsers so main part of our content is going to be viewed on browsers. So you need to know how the browsers work and all that stuff. Also, you need to know the what we call as inspect tools, or the contents of the inspect tools on the Chrome, Edge, Firefox, and Brave. Chrome, Edge, and Brave are based on the same Chromium software, whereas Firefox is a little bit different. But most of the tools are same in all of these browsers. You can go ahead with any one of them. I personally use Chrome and Brave for my day-to-day use. You guys can use any one of them. So moving forward, we'll also need to have a brief look about what is terminal, how how we operate the terminal. Like all these stuff are really going to be useful, because whenever you use Git, you can't directly use Git from your regular Windows terminal. So you guys should have really a good control over Git. I also recommend you using Git for node operations like creating a file, touch operations. So that Git Bash is also really a really helpful tool. Moving forward, design. If you are going to be a particular UI developer or UI developer, or or you're particularly looking to be someone who design UI designer, then these tools are definitely for you. You must learn all of these tools. Figma is a free, so I have mentioned a special heart over there. So I like Figma, and most of the companies are switching to Figma rather than using Adobe XD and Adobe Photoshop. So yeah, that is that, and let's move forward. We move forward to the HTML part. Yes, now we are coming. So HTML, you need to know best practices, semantic HTML, and forms and validations, accessibility, and search engine optimization. Five things. These might look just five, but these are not just it. And HTML is going to be implemented in, I think, each of the whatever we are going to discuss forward. We are going to need HTML in every part of it. So moving forward to CSS. So CSS has whenever you start, CSS is what we can say the adjective of a, if HTML is a noun, CSS is its adjective. You have to make that noun look nice, pretty. So yeah, we have to learn CSS to see to, for example, I'll give an example. This is a web development roadmap written over here. It has a certain font size, it has certain font size, it is a certain font, it has certain text shadow, it might have some animation as well, but here it is not, but I'm just giving you an example. It might have certain animations and all that. You Anything that makes a HTML page look pretty is CSS, no doubt about that. So we have to learn it. So our first thing here in CSS sub property is transition slash animations. So plain CSS. So whenever plain CSS complete, there no use of libraries and anything. The plain CSS can be used to have are having basic animations and transitions. Afterwards, that we are going to discuss whenever you learn JavaScript. So you can explore some nice libraries like GSAP and Anime.js. So yeah, then you have to have some responsive design. Like, have you ever noticed the whenever you just scale down the website has see the UI over here, it just scales down to whatever the dimension it have. So that is a part of a responsive UI. If I have to give some another example, I think google.com should be a very great example for that. Yeah, so it look how it is resizing itself to the according to the window. Just take a look. So that's just see the search bar. So that is responsive design. So it's a must learn. So mobile first, REM units, viewport, and fluid beds. REM units are the units to these are HTML units like centimeter, meter, and all these stuff. That these are the things the things you should learn. Media queries, like media queries are used to implement design at a particular width, and a certain design is implemented at certain width or screen size. Then you have to learn. Then you have to use media queries over there. CSS preprocessors. These are the higher, as I said, these are for people who are currently are mastering CSS, and they use these kind of stuff. But this is not a must have for starting web development. This is something you might want to look after you have started your work in HTML. And then we have modern CSS. like style components, which are going to discuss like in React and Angular stuff, and CSS, advanced CSS modules. So CSS preprocessors and modern CSS you might not want to have look like right now, but these are something you might want to look later in your stage. Then CSS frameworks, yeah, these are something must have, you have to learn them right now, but not before you learn the basic CSS. Some people just go directly over to I'm going to learn Tailwind, I'm going to do Bootstrap, but no, this is not something you want to do. You have to learn the basics of CSS before you move on to the frameworks like Tailwind, CSS and Bootstrap. You please guys don't do that. Like, it really is going to get tougher if you do it. So like now we have, I've assumed now we have learned all these stuff which we have discussed right now. Then we have time to choose here. So you have to choose either front end or back end, and desktop applications, mobile applications. We are going to discuss all of that. So moving forward to the front end part. So front end, so as I said ki, if HTML is a noun, CSS is its adjective, and JavaScript is its verb. Whatever you see, the fancy doable things, like whatever interactive things you can see on certain website, these are the JavaScript things. Like now I'm clicking this 59 number icon, and the page is not reloading, but it is still showing me the content which was already stored there. So that is a verb. I did certain action and it responded with some, and it rendered some another page. So that is something that is done with JavaScript. So JavaScript is something must have, like whatever you have to do on the front end side, JavaScript is must. So now in the vanilla plain JavaScript, we have its basic syntax, DOM object, document object manipulation, and the fetch API. It's a basic. There is this fetch API in JavaScript itself, or another thing which we use to fetch document from the APIs is called Axios. So which we'll discuss later. JSON is a type of format which we use to communicate with the backend and front end. So that is a JSON, and ES6 is a type of syntax. And then we have TypeScript. TypeScript is a JavaScript ka bada bhai, you can say. JavaScript ka bada bhai. You write something in TypeScript, it converts back it into JavaScript. So that thing is called as TypeScript. So moving on to the front end frameworks, as I said before, for the CSS framework as well, do not move into front end framework before learning JavaScript. Please don't. It is not going to help you. It will severely damage your front end concepts. So just don't. So as you can see, there are a few front end frameworks: React, Vue, Svelte and Angular. React, currently I'm doing React, so yeah, that is my heart over there. And then we have Vue and Svelte. Everything here is JavaScript. Angular is something which is not recommended for a short applications. Angular is something more professional. It's very large, and it is going to take time to learn that. It is not something you can learn over a span of month. It's going to take you time. So, and Angular is generally recommended for corporate type applications. Like, don't use it if you're going to just make a project or something. It's something really large application for an Angular project. React is very nice. You can learn React. The learning curve is also very nice for React. So yeah, I recommend you using React or Vue or Svelte. So any of these front-end frameworks use state management system. So whatever, like I can edit this thing. So its current state is web development roadmap, but I can change it to some other thing. So that is something that is managed by state. So earlier we used to have Redux in React, but now after the latest update, there is context API and React hooks. So yeah, they are pretty great. Like the function based components over there, they are pretty great and handy. So if you are learning React, context API is the way to go. So Redux, that is some that you can learn it, because see, here is a fact. Context API has been just implemented right now. There are companies out there who are using Redux as their day-to-day applications, and that companies need to maintain their entire application on Redux, because they have written something that is pretty large in Redux itself. Now they can't just shift to the newer technology because it has came right now, so they need someone to maintain that technology itself. So Redux, you can learn it. Then we have Vuex for Vue. For if you are learning Vue, then Vuex is for you. They All these things are pretty similar. And we have services for Angular. These are pretty similar things. And you can just, if you have learned one thing, then you can learn the next thing pretty easily. Then static site generators. So you guys might be wondering, what are static site generators? So earlier we discussed over here the search engine optimization, something I think it was here, SEOs. No, I think it was here in, yeah, search engine optimization. So have you guys ever seen ki if I paste in a link on WhatsApp, it gets a preview of the website over there? Have you guys ever seen that? So if you have seen that, then yes, that is static site, that is search engine optimization. And static site generators are used exactly for the same. We have Gatsby for React and Gridsome for Vue. These are the same things, just for me different frameworks. Gatsby and Gridsome, same names, similar names. Then we have Next and Nuxt. See, similar names. Next and Next.js for React, because EF React, and Nuxt.js for Vue. Next.js was pretty hyped up in 2021. I am personally learning Next.js, and big companies like you guys would be surprised to hear Next.js is being implemented. Netflix uses Next.js, so that is something you will learn if you. That is something you have to must learn if you have selected front React as your front end framework. Then Next.js is way to go. New Nuxt.js is same as Next.js, but it is made for the front end framework Nuxt, front end framework Vue. So the name Nuxt. And 11t is another static site generator. It's kind of lesser heard, but not recommend. I'm not going to say not recommended, but this thing should be prioritized over 11t. If you have to learn 11t, then you are all the best. Then we have server side rendering and Nuxt.js and Next.js here as well, because they are the same thing. And the rendering is done on the server side, then you call it through an API, and then it is rendered on your side. So there is that server side rendering. So more tools for the front end. Yeah, let's go on to here. Package managers. You guys must, if you have previously installed Node, then you might be knowing npm or yarn. Npm and yarn are pretty same. I think if you have installed Python, then you use pip install. It is similar to what pip does in Python. Npm does similar stuff in JavaScript, Node.js, what do we say. So it comes pretty handy. Npm and yarn both are similar, but I use yarn, so there is that heart over there. So build tools. These things, these are pretty like task runners. You have to learn npm scripts. Like if you have to start a particular React project right now, then you have npm start or npm build. These things are there in npm scripts. Gulp is also another similar thing. Linters and ES formatters. I personally use Prettier as my code formatter for VS Code. I think I'm going to make a VS Code extension list. All these stuff are pretty great, and they make your code look pretty, because what happens is you have to deal codes with a single code file might contain 2000 lines of code, and it gets really tiresome and unproductive thing to just search and all that stuff. So you might have to use some tools to increase your productivity. These are really handy. I personally use another VS Code extension called Bracketer. That's also very nice. I'm going to link all of these stuff in a document over in below document. So after you see this video completely, I'm also going to include resources to learn all these stuff, like entirely all these stuff. And I'm going to attach resources for the same in a Word file below later. I have not done it right now. So module, after going forward, we have module bundlers. Don't look at it, it's just something, if it's just something nice to know, it's not as important. Don't take much of attention if you don't know this. Okay, I don't know module bundlers, what does it. This is something that is done by our front end frameworks. They come within within all that stuff. Version control system, Git and GitHub, must learn, guys. You have to learn. If you are doing anything in your life, anything regarding to coding, these things you have to learn, Git and GitHub. Then we come to browser dev tools. I think I told you guys about browser dev tools, but I'll show you a really good examples of browser dev tools. So here, if you guys go on inspect, and I think it's taking time due to, okay, yes. So here are the browser dev tools. Because of live streaming, I think there is certain amount of lag by my PC. My PC is not that great, so yeah. So these are things you can control, like network, what all requests have been made by the browser currently. You all are going to need this stuff when you are going to testing the APIs and all that stuff. This is stuff that is really handy. Then you have specific, see, I can see what all styles have been implemented. Then you have this JavaScript console. Then what all sources are used by Google for the particular website. So yeah, you have to learn all these things. This is also a must learn. Browser dev tools, VS Code extensions. I told you I'm going to attach a file of my favorite VS Code extension over in the link description below. So yeah, then there is Emmet tools. Emmet for VS Codes are pretty great. Like I'll just give an example. If you type just one, if there is an HTML file, and you open it in VS Code, and you just make one exclamation mark over there, it actually gives you the HTML boilerplate. So there are some pretty great other Emmet tools which you have to learn, and you will eventually over time. But yeah, as I discussed before, Axios is used to get and fetch the APIs. So yes, Axios is pretty handy, because the generally JavaScript, there is this callback hell. Whenever, even if you'll see it, there is this callback hell, and you don't want all that dot then dot catch. So Axios comes pretty handy over there. Then there is GraphQL. It is also used for API testing as well. And it has its own Apollo client. Then progressive web apps were pretty hyped in 2021. This is not something you should directly dive into directly. So you have to learn all these things before going to progressive web apps. So they are quite higher level stuff. WebAssembly, yeah. If you're developing a web application that has really space constraints and memory constraints, then Rust, C++, you can develop a web application in it. But I don't think that's worth the trouble. But if you're like really conscious about what are things you are using, then you can use these things. But there is not much of a support from the community if you are using all this stuff. So yeah. Yes. Okay. And moving forward, we have speech recognition. Speech recognition is also a very nice thing to have. You don't have to directly dive into it. It just, if you know it, nice. Otherwise, move on to the next stuff. Then Jamstack is another. What did this happen? Okay, Jamstack is another framework as well. Do it if you are really interested in knowing what is Jamstack, but it's nice to know, but it's not very important. Yeah. So it was worth mentioning. Yeah. So now moving on to the backend part. Yes, we are now at a stage where we are going to talk about backend. First, you have to pick a language. So, if you are already a front-end developer like me and you already know JavaScript, then work is pretty much easier for you to come into backend. Also, there is Python, Rust, C Sharp, Java, PHP. See, backend is something that is depending upon your application. If you are for example, if you are using large databases, then using Python makes more sense, because there are artificial intelligence and data science libraries are more integrated for Python rather than JavaScript. So choosing the language for backend depends solely upon the type of application you are making. Like it makes no sense to use Java if you are using databases, or if you are using a very speedy application that has very high memory constraints, and you want a full control of that application, then you will use Java. So there is that. Then there are backend frameworks. As I said, the Laravel, PHP. If I have mentioned keys, you have sites, you might have seen websites in PHP. These are made via Laravel. Laravel, that is a backend framework. What happened was, the demand for Laravel developers grew significantly downwards in the 2 years, but people stopped learning PHP. So there was a hike in demand for PHP developers recently, because companies are still using these frameworks, because no company will do कि चलो आज एक नया framework आया, let's switch to that, because they have all that their frame structure code, and built their entire databases over that. So going on to a certain framework, switching a certain framework for a company is not that easy. So if you are interested in Laravel development, you can, but it's going to be declined severely over the next few years. Currently it's in demand, but so now going on to Spring Java. If you are selected Java as your language, then the front end framework for it is Java. Then you have Ruby on Rails. Yes, Ruby for that is for Ruby. Then Express. Yes, so for server management you have Express and Koa. Then Django and Flask are pretty famous. You can learn it. They are most of the companies that use Python as their backend framework either use Django or Flask. So yeah, they are a must have as well. Moving on to content management systems. Yes, so content management systems are traditional, headless, and then we go to DevOps. So traditional, if you guys have noticed, then there is WordPress for blogging. Similarly, there is Drupal for the same. It's something that is not like if you are a WordPress developer, then people will not specifically hire you unless you have some specific skills about WordPress and are exceptional in it. Then there are other headless CMS like Netlify CMS is very nice. Then we discussed WordPress, Sanity.io, Strapi, Prismic, Contentful, and Storybook. For those of you guys who have joined very recently on the stream, I'd like to mention कि all of the resources, if you have to learn any of the resources, just you can ping me, or you can see the Word document that is going to be mentioned in description below. You can check that out. And I'm going to attach a file of my favorite VS Code extension. Yeah, I like them pretty much. So yeah, moving on to DevOps. So DevOps is something that is, if you are a backend developer, that is really important. Yes. So hosting, what there is a backend framework and you have to host it on. Currently, whenever you develop something, that is on your local machine, and you have to develop it and you have to publish it on cloud, or we have to host it somewhere on the World Wide Web. So you have to host it. So there are some conventional ways of hosting like Heroku, Linecode, AWS, Microsoft Azure, and Vercel. And there are some continuous integration, continuous development, CI/CD. CI/CD. There is for it there is Netlify and GitHub Pages. I like both of them. My few projects have been there on Netlify, and there are some GitHub Pages as well. So yes, I like Netlify. Netlify is also very cheap actually. Moving on to web server, you will need a web server to deploy your backend code. So there is Apache, Microsoft IIS, and NGX. Testing something you should really not worry about if your project is really small. But if you're looking something to be done for a company, then testing is something you should know about at least. The types of testing are unit, integration, and functional testing. Serverless coding, it's not actually serverless, but it's something you don't have to worry about. That is serverless deployment management. So Aws Lambda and Netlify, you will hear Netlify and Devops quite a lot because Netlify is my favorite. Also Netlify uses Aws Lambda in its backend, so it's pretty much same. You can learn any of it. Then we move on to virtualization. Pretty much most of you might have heard about Docker, and there is Kubernetes. You can learn that. Then you should learn about load balancing, monitoring, security of your application. Then GitHub Actions. You should know about all these stuff. And SSL certificate and SSH certificate, you guys should know how to install certificates on your hosting page and all that stuff. You should definitely learn all these stuff. These things are just good to know. Okay, moving on. Where were we? Yeah, so moving on to databases. So databases have APIs. Like I have to talk to my database through a certain website. Like I have to send that. Imagine there is a login form over here. I have to send my email ID and password through that to check if that certain user exists. Then I am going to use APIs. Like I'll send that particular piece of data through an API to my backend, and the backend will respond to that. I'll send the API as a request. Then backend will fulfill my request through sending another JSON file or whatever that may be. That depends upon the backend how it is coded. So yeah, authentication. As I said, authentication, there are pretty famous authentication system, that is OAuth and JWT. JWT is JSON Web Token. They can be implemented. All this stuff is very easy to use. You can learn all these things very easily. Then providers for these authentication systems are OAuth, Auth for OAuth, and Firebase is another provider for authentication systems. Then databases. Here comes relational and non-relational databases. If you are a backend developer, then this is something you must know, something which we are learning right now as well. If you are in IT department as me, then in Java that we have some database lessons over there. So databases are divided into two types: relational and non-relational. Relational databases are something you can think of it as a spreadsheet. Some examples of them are PostgreSQL, MySQL, Azure Cloud SQL, and MS SQL. If you learn even one of these and you have to learn another type of the same thing, you can learn it pretty easily. Don't take कि यार मैंने आज PostgreSQL मुझे 1 महीना लगा सीखने के लिए, अब मुझे MySQL सीखना पड़ेगा. No, you just have to learn one. You just have to be perfect in one thing, and you can learn the similar type of things pretty easily if you are good at one thing. So you can learn similar things pretty quickly. So NoSQL and cloud databases include MongoDB, AWS, FormaDB, Firebase, and Airtable. If you are these tables, NoSQL and cloud databases, they are pretty easy to learn. Like their learning curve is pretty great, but you might run into some problems if your application is pretty large. You will definitely run into some problems over there. So yeah, there is that. Now moving on to some desktop applications. You will be surprised. You can code JavaScript. You can code applications on desktop through JavaScript. Like I know this is session on web development, but you can code using your HTML, CSS, JavaScript knowledge. You can code desktop applications, mobile applications, some machine learning skills. Yes, so Electron is a very famous thing, and some of the famous things are developed in Electron are VS Code, Twitch, Stack, Figma, and Discord. All of these stuff have been coded in JavaScript, and this is something optional. Matlab, if you have very great command on Node.js and JavaScript, then you should definitely try Electron. Definitely, like, must recommend it. Mobile applications. So we have discussed React in our previous discussion in front-end frameworks. So React Native is का छोटा भाई है. If you have to develop a mobile application, then you can code using React Native framework, but it's certainly not recommended. I'll tell you why. Because if you are coding in pure Java for your mobile application, then you have pretty great command of what you are doing. It's not something. I'll give you an example. There are three applications. They are pretty same. For example, calculator app. I can make a calculator app within 4 MB size if I'm using just Java. If I'm using Flutter, I can code it in 27 MB. And if it is React Native, it will take around 127 MB of space. It's not something that is recommended, but yeah, if the application is really large and you have deployed it successfully on web, and you have to use similar things for deployment on mobile, then React Native is for you guys. Then we have Flutter. Flutter is really great tool, and then there is Flutter for web as well. If you want to learn that, if you are already developing mobile applications using Flutter, you can develop web applications using Flutter as well. Flutter uses Dart language. Then there is NativeScript and Ionic, pretty similar stuff. Then we move on to machine learning and AI. Python is king here. आगे का कुछ देखो ही मत. Python है जो सब कुछ है. Python के कोई competition है ही नहीं आसपास यहाँ पर. There is no competition for that. Then we have TensorFlow and Brain.js over here. Okay. Then if you are this is something that is optional: soft skills and personality development, and attention to detail, adaptability, creativity, communication, interpersonal skills, leadership, teamwork, problem solving, time management, and work ethic. All this stuff is something that is must have, I can say. Yes, it is must have, definitely. So in the end, this is the roadmap. If you are going to learn web development, we have discussed quite a lot. I'll attach the link to this whimsical site down in the description below. So yes, I think now we have reached to an end of the session. So I request you guys to please like, share, and subscribe. Mention in the comment section what all things you want from me. If I hold a future live session, if the GFG community gives me an opportunity to do so, if I mention it down, what all stuff you liked, what all you didn't like, please reach out to me as well. Also subscribe to GFG on all of its platforms. Like, share, and subscribe. In the end, I would like to thank the entire GFG student chapter VIIT for giving me this opportunity to speak at this very nice event conducted by them. So I am really very grateful to all of them. So yeah, thank you guys. Thanks a lot. Love.